Hello, I am Carolyn. I'm your instructor for Media Evolution. It's BPT 110. And if you haven't figured out by now, this is a virtual class and we will not be meeting. That being said, I know a lot of people feel like they need the structure of a class. If you are one of those people, then you are welcome to create a class in your head and come during my office hours or work with Michael Lane. My office hours for this 8 weeks are, I have to look, Monday and Tuesday from 1:30 to 3, and hopefully that'll appear on the screen somewhere, and Wednesday from 2 to 4:30. You don't have to come, it's up to you, but what I will do for you is I'll yell at you and make you do your work. And I am also here to answer any questions. If you decide that you want to work on the class at home during that time, if you've got a question for me, you can call me in my office. My office number, my phone is right there. My office number is 828-395-1537. So find a way to make this work for you. I don't know what that way will be, but I just want to make sure that you guys keep up and do well in this class. And I don't know if I said this or not, but I'm Carolyn Young, and you probably have me for another class, maybe not, but I'm happy you're here. All right, so let's see, what do we need to talk about here? A couple of suggestions I have for you for this class is keep up. Man, I'll tell you, these 8-week classes, they fly by, so make sure that you keep up. And a great way to do that is to put all of your information in your phone. So at the top of the class, you're going to find a document that says suggested schedule that has all of the elements that you need to complete for this class and when they are due. They are due on a weekly basis. I recommend you take your phone, you sit down for half an hour, and put all those deadlines in your phone with a notification that tells you when it's due a week before or a day before, or whatever you need to do. This will make such a difference to you getting stuff done, because anyone who knows me knows I'm a little bit scatterbrained. And so I use my phone to remind me of stuff all the time. I don't know where I would be without it. So I suggest you do that too. Okay, so what else do I need to tell you? So the schedule is basically weekly. Things will open on Monday morning and things will close on Sunday evening. Now this week's a little weird because you guys don't even start class until Wednesday, but just so you know, that's the standard schedule. I think that's basically it. Put it in your phone, stay on track, and know that these things actually are going to be open for 2 weeks at a time because of life. And I think someone's going to discuss that with you, but I'm just telling you that too. So weekly assignments probably will take you 3 to 4 hours to complete, maybe 5 someday, depending on the project. Put them in your phone. Okay, so I like Character Animate because who wants to stare at me all day? So for a lot of these videos, I'm going to use Character Animate to do the work for me. So what I'm going to do right now is I'd like to turn it over to the esteemed BPT scientist from Character Animate, who just happens to share the same voice as me, to tell you a little bit more about this class. Let's talk about what you can expect each week. A video. This is it. Hello. These videos will occasionally have information that Carolyn thinks is important to a topic, but was not discussed in the book. So don't skip these videos because there will occasionally be some quiz questions from it. Or you can just read the transcript that you can find under the link to the video. In addition to the video, you will also have a reading, you will have a quiz based on the reading, you will have an assignment based on whatever that reading is, and you will participate in a forum or some sort of activity that's also tied to the reading. Each week will open on Monday morning and be due that following Monday morning. However, that is my suggested schedule. Because I know sometimes life throws things at us that we can't control, each week will actually be open for 2 weeks. Every Monday morning, I will send an email, and using the last 3 digits of your student number, I will list what assignments have been done and what assignments still need to be done and how much time is left. Let me just restate, I highly recommend that you do the weekly assignments and weekly readings every week so you don't fall too far behind, because these 8 weeks fly by. You'll also notice that the approximate time for each weekly event is listed on the website, so you can plan out your time. Maybe you'll decide to do this class twice a week, 3 times a week, or just once a week. But with those times, you should have a pretty good idea of how much time you'll need to spend in those classes. Also, every quiz has 3 attempts. I plan on going in and grading on Monday mornings, Wednesday afternoons, and Friday mornings. Just a little warning, the questions rotate through, so don't think you can take the quiz and get this fed the same exact questions. There's 30 questions in my question bank, and you will be fed 15 of them. So some will be repeats, some won't. You also notice I mentioned readings. That's because we have a book. It's not a physical book. It's what's called an open educational resource. It's at the top of the page on a link, and it says our textbook, The Mass Media Landscape. So that's the book you'll be using. And just remember, the web is filled with information. Some of it is good information, some of it is bad information. So you need to use the book to answer the quiz questions. Do not Google a bunch of stuff, because I don't care what your sources are. Our source for the quizzes is the book. So the professor asked me to deliver this line myself so you would understand how important it is. So here it is. Here is the line. I'm going to look to make sure I'm saying it right. I've got 25 years of experience in media. I've got way more than that, but I was actually in television and a little bit of radio for 25 years. Then I came here and taught. I have a degree, so guess what? I get to be the authority. It is me who gets to decide what is good information and what is bad information. And that's why I picked this book. If you answer something based on what you Googled, Carolyn won't count it as correct if it doesn't match the information that's in the book. One other thing about the quiz, if it's a fill in the blank and it counts it wrong even though you know it's right, don't panic. Carolyn will always go in and double check answers marked wrong, just to make sure Moodle hasn't made a mistake. And if you ever see a quiz question that is marked wrong that you believe should not be marked wrong, always bring it to Carolyn's attention. The quizzes may have multiple chapters in them, but just know that each question should be labeled what chapter it comes from. So know that you can always use the book while you're taking the quiz. The whole point of the quiz is to get you to look at the book and read the information for the book. The book also has a lot of videos mixed in with it and mini presentations. It's a good book. I think you'll really enjoy it. Okay, a little bit about the content of this class. This is a survey class, which means you're going to learn a little bit about a whole bunch of different media. You'll get a little bit of history. In addition, we're actually going to use this to teach some things about law, ethics, and how media in general works. As you're going through this class, this is the very first class you're taking, so think about where your skill set is and how it can fit into a career. Now back to Carolyn. Well, thank you, BPT scientist, for pointing out all of this very important information. The main thing that I'm going to suggest to you is know that this is a survey class, so you're going to be open to all kinds of options for this career field. It is ginormous. There's so many different ways you can go. So think about that as you're going through this class. What interests you? What are you passionate about? What is it that you want to do? So I'm very excited about getting to know you and about watching you progress through this career and finding out what it is that you're passionate about and helping you to hone your skills and find out what you're great at, because I'm sure you guys are good at everything, but what you're really great at, where those skills are. And now let's talk about the chapters. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of these chapters. So let me call that up. Oh, here it is. So this first chapter, I think it should take you about 30 minutes to read. It basically is kind of an overview of what media is, and one of my favorite media gurus, I'm not really sure. If you get into media and you get into rhetoric and stuff, there's a lot of people pushing out theories about media. And Marshall McLuhan is one of my favorites, and y'all have probably never heard of him, but his big thing was the medium is the message, which basically means that when we do television or video, there's this physical aspect to it, which means that it's going to change people's perception rather than radio. And we saw that played out in the first televised presidential debate between Nixon and Kennedy. Nixon was sweating, he was unattractive. Kennedy looked great, he was calm. People who listened to the debate on the radio said, "Oof, I'm voting for Nixon. He knew what he was talking about." People who watched it said, "Ooh, he's a sweaty mess. I'm voting for Kennedy. He seemed confident and secure and good looking." So that was the first time that we really saw how much media and what media you're using can change. We could talk about MTV and music videos and how that changed the perception of people's musical tastes. Milli Vanilli. If you don't know about Milli Vanilli, you need to look that up. Anywho, so this just basically talks about media. The reason why we're looking at this is, lessons from the past. We keep repeating it. When we're talking about media, you might think that people are selling Bounty paper towels or selling cars or whatever, but really when you're talking about television or radio, guess what the product is? It's us. It is the audience. We are the product that they are selling to advertisers, and then the advertisers in turn are selling the products to us. And that's the good lesson here, is that if you want to reach your audience, you have to talk directly to them, not to a million different people. So as media was doing this and then this, it became much more narrow and much more specific, and that's why we're so divided, because now we can seek out messages that align directly with our opinions, and I could go on and on and on about that, but the big thing is this is just an introduction to media. Okay, so the second chapter is media technology and the evolution of language. This just talks about TV and mass media changed people and had a cultural impact on them. And I will tell you that the one thing the book doesn't talk about, but that is the huge effect that radio had on people's dialect. Because, the world in the early 1900s was not really easily accessible to everyone. So when people started hearing other people on the radio, it was the first time they had heard different dialects. People from the north heard people from the south, people from the south heard people from the north, and that actually changed the way we talk, because it kind of softened people's dialect, and we realized that the easiest accent to understand was the Midwestern accent, and that's why a lot of news folks are using the Midwestern accent. The other big thing that radio did was pointed out how illiterate so many people were. And so what they would do at the beginning of radio is they would read the newspapers, which really ticked off the newspapers because they were losing readership because people could just tune in and hear the newspaper on the radio. However, later on, the newspaper said, we need to do something about this because it ain't no fur. So they started what's called the wire service, and that's how radio stations get their news. They basically had to subscribe to a newspaper, but the newspapers kind of all came together. So the Associated Press is probably one of the most well-known wire services. And then chapter 3 is traversing our media landscape. Basically, this, when I said you got to be all powerful if you're in media, well, that's true, because there's a lot of manipulation tactics that media companies use. As we know, sometimes the truth is not necessarily transparent. So a lot of media companies maybe give their opinion rather than the actual information. And remember when I was talking about rhetoric and how crazy it is? Well, everyone who's going to tell a story is going to put their perspective on it. So there's a lot of rhetoricians who believe that news can never be unbiased, because people tend to add biases just by telling a story. And there's rhetoricians who say, if you say something's orange, maybe it's not the same orange that I recognize. So that means that you're putting your biases on it just by using the adjectives that you're using to describe what happened. It's a whole thing. But anywho, the big thing is make sure you know your source. And that's why at the beginning of this whole video, and I will reiterate it, our source for media information is this book. And when you get an assignment that says you can quote this book or you can find outside sources, that is fine. But make sure they're legit outside sources, not Facebook or Tom's Opinion or a website that's a .com website, because if it's a website that's a .com website, 9 times out of 10, they have an agenda, and that agenda has something to do with the advertiser who owns that website. So check your sources. And as you get into this curriculum, you'll learn that we do a lot of news gathering, mainly because news gathering really teaches so many important pieces of video and audio storytelling and techniques and technology, but it also makes you recognize media bias and learn how to be a better researcher, a better interviewer, and ultimately a more accurate and better storyteller. Okay, I think that wraps it up. I think this is all we needed to talk about this week for your chapter. And I'm probably going to use character animate. So if I appear to be a cat or a dog or something, I just thought it might be fun. But anywho, there you go. Thanks for listening.